I learned how to disappear long before I learned how to speak up. At family dinners, that skill mattered more than anything else. The dining table was large, polished, and always perfectly set, but there was never a place for my voice. I sat there anyway, same chair, same corner, like a decorative object no one remembered choosing. That night, the house smelled of roasted chicken and cardamom tea. My mother had gone all out because Cameron was bringing his fiancée for dinner. Everything had to be perfect. Everything always was. When it came to him, Cameron arrived laughing, confident as ever, his arm wrapped comfortably around Sarah's shoulder. She was warm and polite, the kind of person who made eye contact and smiled like she actually meant it. She doesn't know her dad's plans, perfect timing, and then turned to me. Silence high. She said kindly, "I'm Sarah." I smiled back. "Nice to meet you." My mother barely acknowledged the exchange. "Sit, sit," she urged, already pouring Cameron's water before he reached his chair. "You must be tired. Work has been so demanding for him lately." Dinner began the way it always did, stories about Cameron's job, his achievements, his plans. My father nodded along proudly, chiming in whenever possible. I listened quietly, chewing slowly, keeping my posture straight. Years of practice had taught me how to take up as little space as possible. And his promotion. My mother said loudly, glancing at Sarah, that didn't surprise us at all. "He's always been someone special." Cameron grinned. "I get it from you, Mom." She laughed, then her eyes drifted toward me. Something sharp flickered there. Annoyance maybe, or disappointment that I still existed in her line of sight. "Well," she said, waving her fork vaguely in my direction, "not everyone turns out to be someone." The table chuckled softly. I felt my stomach tighten, but I said nothing. She didn't stop there. Some people. She continued, smiling as if she were making a harmless joke, "are just a nobody. Nobody." The word echoed in my ears louder than the clink of cutlery or the hum of the ceiling fan. Nobody meant invisible. Nobody meant unworthy of explanation. Nobody meant I didn't even qualify as a disappointment. I was beneath that. Cameron smirked, eyes still on his plate. My father cleared his throat but said nothing. Silence had always been his language. I forced my lips into a small, polite smile. If I reacted, I'd only prove her right. That's what I'd been taught. But Sarah didn't laugh. She looked from my mother to me, confusion knitting her brows. "That's a bit strong," she said carefully. My mother shrugged. "Oh, don't mind it. They've always been like this. Quiet, no ambition, no direction." Each word pressed down on me, familiar and heavy. I remembered being 12, showing her my first certificate. She'd glanced at it and said, "That's nice, but Cameron won his class prize today." I remembered choosing silence after that. Silence was safer. Sarah studied me more closely now. "So what do you do?" she asked. Before I could answer, Cameron laughed. "Whatever it is, it's nothing exciting. They don't really talk about it." My fork paused midair. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. "Habit 1, Survival 1. I keep busy." I said simply. My mother scoffed. "See, nobody." The word landed again, heavier this time. Sarah didn't respond immediately. She just nodded slowly, like she was filing something away. Her eyes lingered on me, not with pity but with curiosity. Real curiosity. For the first time that night, something shifted. I didn't know it yet, but the silence my family relied on was about to break. Not because I raised my voice, but because someone finally chose to listen. The rest of dinner continued, but something had shifted beneath the surface, like a crack forming in glass that hadn't shattered yet. My family didn't notice. They never did. They were too comfortable in their version of the story. Cameron shining at the center, my parents orbiting proudly around him, and me fading into the background like furniture. Sarah, however, stayed quiet. She ate slowly, asked fewer questions, and kept glancing in my direction when she thought no one was looking. There was no judgment in her eyes, no pity either, just a growing sense that something didn't add up. My mother launched into another story. When Cameron was in university, she said, smiling fondly, He worked so hard, late nights, endless stress. We worried about him so much. I almost laughed. I remembered those years clearly. Cameron lived at home, meals prepared, bills paid. I was the one juggling work and study, slipping out early mornings and coming back after midnight. But no one worried about me. Nobody ever did. Sarah set her fork down gently. "And you?" she asked me suddenly. "Were you close growing up?" The question startled me, so did the silence that followed. "We lived in the same house," I said carefully. Cameron rolled his eyes. "Don't make it sound dramatic." "I'm not," I replied softly. Sarah smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I didn't mean to make things awkward." But it was already awkward, just not in the way my family understood. Dinner plates were cleared. My mother poured tea, still talking, still in control. But Sarah leaned slightly toward me, lowering her voice. "Do you mind if I ask something a bit personal?" she said. I hesitated, then shook my head. "Go ahead." She studied my face as if weighing her words. "You don't act like someone who has no direction." My chest tightened. "That's kind of you," I said. "It's not kindness," she replied. "It's observation." My mother interrupted from across the table. "Sarah, dear, don't waste your energy. Some people are just content with being small." Something inside me braced for the familiar sting, but it didn't come. Instead, Sarah straightened. "With respect," she said politely, "I don't think being quiet means being small." My mother blinked, surprised. Cameron laughed it off. "You're overthinking it. Trust me." Sarah didn't answer him. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "What's your full name?" she asked me. The question felt heavier than it should have. I could have lied. I could have deflected. Years of instinct told me to protect myself by staying invisible. But I was tired. I told her my full name. She typed it into her phone, still smiling faintly, as if she expected nothing more than a social media profile. The screen glowed against her face as she waited for the page to load. Then her smile faded. She blinked once. Then again her thumb scrolled slowly, then faster. Is this you?" she asked quietly. The room seemed to shrink. "What?" my mother snapped. "What are you looking at?" Sarah turned the phone slightly toward me first. On the screen was an article headline, my name, a photo I barely recognized, me in a suit standing behind a podium, a logo behind me. My heart thudded. I nodded once. Sarah's hand trembled. "This says you founded." My mother leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "What nonsense is this?" Cameron stood up, moving closer. His confident expression faltered as he read. "No," he muttered, "that can't be right." My father said nothing, but his face had gone pale. Sarah looked from one face to another, stunned. You're listed as a keynote speaker. These awards, this foundation." The room fell completely silent. The word nobody hung in the air, fragile now, cracking under the weight of truth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to save them from their discomfort. I just sat there, waiting. No one spoke for a long moment. The silence wasn't the comfortable kind my family had perfected over the years. It was sharp and unfamiliar, filled with unasked questions and dawning realization. The kind of silence that exposes everything people work so hard to hide. Sarah was the first to break it. "This foundation," she said slowly, eyes still on her phone, "it's been mentioned in international journals. They fund scholarships, medical aid, community schools." She looked up at me again, disbelief softening her voice. "You started this." I nodded once, years ago. My mother laughed nervously. "This must be exaggerated. People put all kinds of things online. It's not." My father said quietly, still staring at the screen. I recognized that logo. Everyone turned toward him. He swallowed. "Your grandfather used to talk about work like this, real work." The word real landed differently this time. Cameron crossed his arms. "So what? You hid it from us on purpose." I met his gaze, calm but firm. I didn't hide. I stopped offering. The memory rose uninvited me at 20. 2. Trying to explain my first project over dinner. My mother cutting me off to ask Cameron about his exam results. The way my voice had slowly learned to disappear. Sarah set the phone down gently. "Why wouldn't you tell them?" she asked. I smiled faintly, because every time I spoke, I was reminded who mattered. My mother's face tightened. That's not fair. It's not untrue either, I said. Her mouth opened then closed. For once, she had no immediate defense. I took a breath, the kind that steadies you before stepping off a ledge. I left home early, I continued. Not because I was rebellious, but because I needed space to breathe. I worked multiple jobs. I failed more times than I can count. I learned to be quiet because noise wasn't allowed unless it came with approval. My father finally looked at me, really looked at me. You never asked for help, he said. I learned not to. I replied, nobody listens to nobody. The word hung there, stripped of its power. Sarah's eyes filled with something close to anger, not at me, but at the room. Do you know how rare this is? She said to my parents. People dream of making a difference like this, and you dismissed them. My mother's voice cracked. I didn't know that was a choice, I said gently. Cameron scoffed, so you're some kind of hero now. I shook my head. No, I just chose a different path, one that didn't need your validation. That hurt him more than shouting ever could. I saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened, the way his confidence faltered for the first time. Sarah stood up. I need air, she said quietly, stepping away from the table. No one stopped her. My mother reached for my hand, hesitating halfway, as if unsure she still had the right. Why didn't you trust us? I pulled my hand back gently. Trust grows where care lives. The room felt smaller, heavier. Years of assumptions collapsed under the weight of simple truth. I didn't come here to prove anything, I said, standing slowly. I came because you invited me. I stayed because I hoped, maybe foolishly, that things might be different. My father's voice broke. We failed you. The words were soft, but they echoed louder than any insult I'd ever endured. I nodded. I know. And in that moment, I realized something important. Their regret didn't heal me, but it no longer controlled me either. For the first time, the truth wasn't something I carried alone. It stood in the open, undeniable. And it was finally their turn to sit with it. Sarah returned a few minutes later, her eyes red but steady. She didn't sit beside Cameron. Instead, she pulled out a chair across from me. That single choice spoke louder than anything else that night. I'm sorry, she said, not to the room, but to me. I nodded, accepting it for what it was, something genuine in a house full of late realizations. My mother cleared her throat, her confidence gone. We didn't know how to talk to you, she said weakly. You were always so distant. I almost smiled at the irony. I became distant. I replied calmly, because being close hurt, no anger. No raised voice, just truth, spoken plainly. Cameron stared at the table, jaw clenched. So what now? He asked. You just walk away after making us look like fools. I met his gaze. I didn't make you look like anything. I simply existed. Silence followed. The kind that forces people to confront themselves. My father stood slowly. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller, stay, he said quietly. Let's talk. Let's try again. Once, those words would have shattered me with hope. Once, I would have stayed, waited, bent myself smaller to fit whatever space they offered. But I wasn't that person anymore. I already tried, I said gently, for years. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You're our child. And I was your nobody, I answered softly. Both can be true. I picked up my coat. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. That surprised me most of all. At the door, I paused. I don't hate you, I said, but I won't keep proving my worth to people who decided long ago I had none. Sarah stood as well. I won't forget this, she said to them, then looked at Cameron. We'll talk. That scared him more than anything I'd said. Outside, the night air was cool and quiet. I breathed deeply, like someone surfacing after years underwater. The house behind me glowed warmly, but I felt no pull toward it. Only distance. My phone buzzed as I walked. A message from my team, a reminder of a meeting tomorrow, a life waiting for me. One I'd built quietly, brick by brick, without applause. Behind me, my family sat with the aftermath. No shouting, no dramatic confrontation. Just the echo of a truth they could no longer ignore. That was the sweetest revenge of all. Not humiliation, not victory, freedom. For the first time, I didn't feel like nobody. I felt like myself.